everybody. So I'm jumping on here because I have something that's kind of weighing heavy on my heart, and I want to hear your guys' input on this, and let's start generating some conversation around this. My name is Jamie Matthews. I'm an empowerment coach with Real Life Coaching, and I'm also the founder of the Trauma Survivor Ambassador Program. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is talking about our trauma. So I know it's scary and very hard to talk about trauma. Since working with survivors through my Trauma Survivor Ambassador Program, it has become very clear that survivors are shamed into silence. For generations, we were taught that what happens in the family stays in the family. But silence does not protect us. It keeps us trapped. When we don't talk about our struggles and they just fester, right? They affect our relationships, they affect our self-worth, and they even affect the next generation. But here's the thing. Sharing your story isn't about weakness. It's about strength. It's not about playing the victim. It's all about healing. When you tell your story and you process your story and you learn from it, you reclaim your power. You inspire yourself and everyone around you. You have the right to tell your story. You have the right to share it or not even share it. But when you're doing it for healing, you're doing something radical. You're breaking old rules that no longer serve you. And by doing that, you give other people permission to do the same. So let me give you an example. When you're telling your story as a victim, the difference between that and telling your story as a survivor. So if I sit here and I said, yeah, I was born, with my father being an alcoholic. He was never around. He didn't emotionally love me. There was no attachment, which then I grew up with daddy issues. I don't know. And then it sucked. And then I went, and got married, and my husband had an affair. It just always, all the bad stuff just seems to happen to me. Like I attract all this negative stuff. So that wasn't even that. Like after that, I went into one abusive relationship after the next. I got my ass beat. It feels like the world is just angry with me and throwing all this stuff at me, to where you could say, yeah, I grew up as a child of an alcoholic. I got into a marriage that was toxic, and he ended up cheating on me and broke my heart. But because of that, and not being loved by my father that was an alcoholic emotionally, that led me into having daddy issues, things I knew I had to work out. But I got into relationships before I healed, and it just led me into one toxic relationship after the next, where I was exposed to domestic violence, mental and emotional abuse. And so now I use those experiences to help others get through their trauma and how to focus on themselves and their healing. So did you hear the difference? There's two different ways that you guys can share your stories and be warriors, and not be defined by the circumstances that you've lived in. So let's break the silence together. Speak your truth. Share your story if you're ready. Healing starts when we stop hiding, and every step you take is not just for you, but it's for all of those that are around you, and to let them know that they're not alone. And if you're interested, I would love to have you become a trauma survivor ambassador, where you start the conversations and you share your stories in hopes to break the silence for others that are still suffering and in a spot where they can't really share their stories, or they don't know how. So if you'd like to become an ambassador, check out my website. It's www.reallifecoachingllc.com. There is a whole tab about ambassadors. It shows our current ambassadors, how the program got started, and what an ambassador means. I would love to have more ambassadors, because the louder that we get, our traumas can't be ignored anymore. So let's get loud about our traumas. Let's start sharing our stories, so we can't be forced into silence anymore. So let me know what you guys think about this, what your experience has been, if you haven't talked about your trauma because this is what you fear, or if you have shared your trauma and this is what you got. Let's work together and find some solutions on how to break the stigma.